Right. Welcome everyone back to Cross-Cultural Communication and Education, to our colleagues in Paro, Brooklyn, and Worcester who have joined us this afternoon. Thank you for being here. To anyone else who's viewing this at a later stage, I hope that this is a useful video for you. Just to clarify a few things, we've got a bit of an overlap this week. Although technically we've started on Unit 7, we're spending today's tutorial covering the material from Unit 6 because we didn't have a tutorial last week. We also will be having 3 tutorials in a row for the next 3 weeks. So it's this week, next week, and the week after that. We'll be having a tutorial session each week. And next week we'll obviously focus on Unit 7. And I'm sure for those of you used to having pneumonia, you'll probably be back then. All right, so this week's session is focusing on Unit 6, which we've titled Power, Status, and Influence. And the way that I'd like to start the session is by doing an exercise with you. All right, so this exercise is called How Would I Say That? And the idea behind this exercise is that it is an exercise focus, a practical exercise, focusing on different speech acts. This can be found on Funda. It is part of the content that we have on Funda, but I wanted to incorporate it into today's tutorial as well, just to talk about it. So the idea is that we're going to look at a number of speech acts or scenarios, communication interactions. And what I'd like you to do is, as the instruction says, please discuss with those around you how you might respond to each or some of these situations. So for those of you who haven't been on Funda, and if you have, I've actually got the different speech acts here. All right? So there are 17 scenarios here, different types of situations. Some of them are specific to the type of person that you are interacting with. So for example, number 9, praise a colleague for a well-run conference or event. Or number 13, tell a family member that you are not going to a cousin's wedding. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to give you a few minutes to chat to the people around you. If you're alone there, you can discuss it with yourself. No, seriously, you can think about it on your own and share your ideas with us. And you can either do so when I call to you to your particular site, or you can type it into the group chat, and I will then read it to everyone else. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to look at a number of these, to think about how you might respond in some of these situations. And if you choose one, like number 6, explain that you will not meet a deadline. Perhaps see if there are different ways that each of you would respond to these different situations. All right, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to chat about it. I will leave these scenarios up on the screen, and so that you can take a look at them while you're talking. Oh, and welcome to our colleagues here in Salt River. Glad you could join us. Okay, so I'm going to go silent for a few minutes, and I'm going to give you a chance to discuss with the people around you how you might respond to each or some of these situations. All right. If you manage to come up with some suggestions, please drop them into the group chat if you'd like to, or I will come to you and ask you for them. Including if you have perhaps two different approaches to a speech act. I'll give you another 30 seconds or so.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi there. Yes,
Hi.
I can hear you.
The way I would say, like the first one, giving a compliment to someone about their clothes. With my sister, if we go shopping or something, and I want to compliment her about her clothes, then I would say, "Oh yeah, I like that shirt. It's really slimming, or it really brings out your eyes," or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you'd give a compliment and you'd also add some information about why you think that. All right.
Yeah.
Any responses to any of the others from Brooklyn, our colleagues at Dr. Brooklyn? Or perhaps our colleagues in Salt River or at Lighthouse Ministries in Para? Oh, by the way, to those of you who are not used to seeing me on your screen, Ramon couldn't be here this week, so I'm covering for him. So we've combined cohorts 3 and 4 into one group. No other comments or questions? I mean, comments or responses or suggestions of how you might respond? Let me ask a specific question, perhaps. If we look at numbers 10 and 11, they're both very similar. Number 10 says, critique a supervisor or teacher for being late to a meeting. All right, that's number 10. Number 11 says, critique a subordinate. So you are his or her boss or friend for being late to work. So in both occasions, you are critiquing someone for being late. How would you respond to these situations? Any thoughts? Is there any difference to the way that you would respond to these situations? Looking at numbers 10 and 11.
Hello.
Hi there.
I think if I have to give critique on something, I would first ask questions and make sure why that person was late and things like that, and then I would like set new rules or something to not be late, or new goals, and ask that person to not be late the next time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody at in Paro or in Salt River? Perhaps I'll seen as is often the case, our colleagues in at Dr. Brooklyn are interacting with me quite a bit, which I always enjoy. What would the difference be, if I can ask you that, between number 10 and 11? would there be a difference between critiquing a supervisor or a subordinate? And if there's a difference, why? Why would there be a difference? Any thoughts?
Hello?
Hi there.
We think that when you're in a higher position or more authority position, then you will be more strict and you will be harder or harsher on the person. And when you're in the situation when you have authority above you, then you will be more careful about what you say, and you will you will respect them more.
And why is that? I mean, it might sound like a silly question, but why is that? Why would you respond differently?
I think if I have a boss, I will be scared that I will lose my job. And firstly, and then the other thing is, I think you have to respect the person in God's eyes, the authority above you. But if you're like a Christian, you will automatically believe in, you will respect authority and stuff. But yeah, so I think you will just have that fear for the authority.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks to our colleagues at Dr. Brooklyn. Always willing to share some good ideas with us. I think that they've touched on something really important there, the consequences of that interaction, the consequences of what you're saying when somebody is an authority over you, or when somebody has more power than you in a particular situation. It's something that definitely impacts the way that we communicate. And this isn't the first time that we've discussed something like this. If we think back to Unit 1, this might look familiar. The so-called axioms of communication that we discussed in Unit 1. And one of them was that every interaction has a content dimension and a relationship dimension. And the idea there was that the type of relationship that we have with that person shapes the communication. And there are, the type of relationship impacts the communication, and also differences in power or authority also impacts the relationship. So you are more careful about what you say when someone has power over you or has authority over you, because you're afraid of the consequences. I've just gotten a message from our colleagues here in Salt River. They're saying that they're not able to unmute their microphone. So let me try it from this side. Okay, I'm not. No, it seems I'm not able to unmute from this side either. But on that technical issue, it seems you are able to type into the group chat. So if there's anything that you'd like to say, I do keep an eye on it from time to time. So feel free to drop any comments or questions in there, so that at least to some extent we can still have you interacting with us. All right. So I'll keep an eye on it. If there are any comments from your side, then I will convey that to the rest of the tutorial. All right. So all right. So as I was saying, the relationship dynamics and power or authority differences impact the way that we communicate with one another. But in addition to that, and I want to go back to an earlier slide. So, and I want to refer to one of the readings that you should have done for this unit by Patterson et al., where they speak about crucial conversations. They define crucial conversations as a discussion between two or more people where the stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. Now, as I've said in the blue bubble over here, some of the scenarios we have just discussed could be regarded as crucial conversations. However, we shouldn't think of crucial conversations as being something that involves conflict. With the previous group, I mentioned that you might want to request an increase, a raise at work. In that type of situation, the stakes are high. There might be different opinions regarding whether or not you deserve a raise or whether a raise is something that's viable. And because it's something regarding money, at times emotions run strong. So there might not be any conflict, but according to the authors, it fits the criteria of a crucial conversation. Now, according to them, these crucial conversations, we could respond to them in different ways. Firstly, we might avoid them. Alternatively, we could face them, but handle them poorly. Thirdly, we might face them and handle them well. Now, my question to you is, and I've got it here in this bubble at the bottom, what are some of the factors that would determine how you would decide to respond to a crucial conversation? If we look at these options, you avoid, you might handle it, but handle it poorly, handle it, but handle it well. What do you think are some of the factors that might impact the way that you handle these crucial conversations? Discuss it with your colleagues around you, and I'll give you a minute for that. And think about what are some of the issues or factors that might shape these scenarios, these crucial conversations. I've just had a request here to show the previous slide about crucial conversations. So just to touch on it again, the stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. So if you think about these types of situations, what do you think the factors are that might impact how you respond to these crucial conversations and how well or how poorly you handle them? Any thoughts? I see some movement in Brooklyn.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi. We said that it depends on what kind of person you are, what type of personality you have, how your emotions are, if you are emotionally stable or not really. And if you know the person well that you're talking to or to have the conversation with,
What you're arguing.
and what you're arguing about. And because we said that you have to know the person well, or if you know the person well that you're talking with, because that person might understand you better when you say something or not. And then your emotions will be better and more stable, and that person will just understand your type of personality and who you are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Some interesting points there. Personality, emotions, how well you know the person, how well they know you. Some really good points there. One of the thoughts that came to mind, though, especially on the idea of how well the person knows you. What about family? Often our family knows us quite well. Does that necessarily mean that we'll be able to handle these crucial conversations well and handle them positively? What do you think? I know for me, that's not necessarily the case. Okay, I've got a comment here from our colleagues in Salt River. It says, many times I personally run from them, but the least I can do is face them. But it depends on how the situation is. Yeah. And I think that fits with what our colleagues at Dr. Brooklyn have said. It depends on the situation. And I think for many of us, with these crucial conversations, the stakes are high. It could go very good or very badly. Different opinions, strong emotions. It's understandable that there might be a tendency for us to want to run away from them. So then, if that is the case, what could we possibly do to respond to these situations positively, to handle them well? What do you think we need to do in order to, to handle these crucial conversations in a more successful manner? What do you think is required? Take a minute to think about that.
We think that when you have a crucial conversation with someone and you want to handle it well, you have to consider their opinion as well, and not just give your own opinion and you have your own perspectives. You have to have respect for that person and hear them out as well, and try to talk it out in a grown-up way. Like you have to be calm about it and just listen.
All right, thank you. Excellent suggestions. So being calm, handling the situation well, being a grown-up, or handling it with maturity. Excellent suggestions. And also your other comment, what was the other one? About taking the other person's perspective into account. I think that's also an excellent suggestion. Similar to that, in a previous group, somebody said to listen well, and I think there's a parallel there. Take the other person's perspective into account, listening well. Those two definitely go hand in hand. To our colleagues in Salt River, any other additional comments or suggestions from your side? Okay, I see a comment here. I think evaluation from the two sides is helpful. Okay, if I understand you correctly, are you saying that you need to take both persons' perspectives, both persons' opinions, and their evaluations of the situation into account to come to some kind of agreement? Am I understanding you correctly? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's true. I agree with you. So the reason that I've spoken about this, as I mentioned, we've up to now in the last half an hour, 20 minutes or so, we've spoken mostly about how differences in authority and power can interact or influence our communication interactions. But it goes beyond just our interpersonal communication interactions. One of the things that we wanted to focus on in this particular unit was also to just take a brief look at our interaction with, our consumption of media as mass communication. And I want to start off with a quote from the Castell's reading, where he says that, and here he's connecting the notions of power and communication. He says, and power relations in our social and technological context are largely dependent on the process of socialized communication, on the capacity to influence people's minds. And I guess to some extent, depending on the amount of power or authority somebody has, it impacts the amount of influence that they could have on someone's mind, on the way that we think, on the opinions that we have. But on that thought, I was wondering, how much influence does the media have on the way that we think? If we think about different types of media that we interact with, online social media, the radio, music, movies, television, newspapers, magazines. If we think about these different types of media, there's different types of mass communication, how are they perhaps socializing us? What type of influence do these different types of media have on us, have on our minds? What do you think? Do they have no impact at all? Or are there clearly evident ways that they do impact us? Any thoughts? I think I saw some movement
Hello?
in Brooklyn. Yes, hi there.
I just want to make sure, do we have to say what influence does media have on us?
Yes, that's really what I'm asking, because if I go back to this Castell's quote, whoops, that power relations in our social and technological context are dependent on the process of socialized communication. So, how does the media that we interact with, how does it influence us? Where do you see media like movies, music, magazines, newspapers, television? Where and how do you see it influencing us?
Oh, okay. I think it influences our behavior, because if we see something, we tend to follow that. Last year, I was in a college or university, and we were watching a movie that was a romantic movie, and the people had wrong values, and it was really bad, and they did wrong things and slept together before they were married, and we girls were like, oh, that's so cute, and afterwards the teachers who said, do you realize what you were saying? And you said, oh, that was so cute. So we thought that it was not cute and good, but we didn't realize what the media was doing to us. So indirectly, it's like influencing us.
Sorry, I meant to unmute that. Yeah, thank you. I think it's a good example. Sometimes we don't even realize that we might be in some ways agreeing with or approving of something that usually we wouldn't agree with or approve of. I see a comment here from Salt River. They always direct us on what or how to think, act, and even respond to a certain situation. Yeah, I think that is generally that does kind of happen. Do you perhaps have a specific example? I'm thinking especially of our colleagues in Salt River, or a situation or an example that you're thinking of. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure if there's going to be another comment. Okay, there we go. A good example of the effects of social networks. Um, any specific, like what type of effect are you talking about? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on what type of effect it's having. Okay, so the comment here is Facebook, Twitter, etc. They make people post their daily activities. Okay, so it's kind of turning um, our private daily lives into public consumption, public performances. Okay, I see what you're saying. I think, and I agree with what you're saying. You've all touched on some interesting points. But I want to move on to something else that I'd like us to keep in mind. Um, the first comment from our colleagues in Brooklyn was the kind of message that was being shared about relationships, practices, behavior, etc. But it's important to keep in mind that these messages are shaped and come through a number of people. For example, there are editors, publishers, TV producers, journalists, etc., who act as gatekeepers when it comes to our access to information, when it comes to the shaping of these messages. And while certain messages, explicit messages, can have a significant impact, Castells touches on another issue that is worth keeping in mind. And I'm quoting here from the reading that you got. It says, "Yet the main issue is not the shaping of the minds by explicit messages in the media, but the absence of a given content in the media. What does not exist in the media does not exist in the public mind, even if it could have a fragmented presence in individual minds." So what is it that Castells is saying here? He's saying that, while we sometimes focus a lot on the messages that are in the media, he's saying that what is excluded? What are the editors, publishers, TV producers, journalists, etc.? What are they excluding? What are the news corporations, the social media platforms? What are they excluding? What is absent? Are there different ways of living, different ways of being, things that we are not being told? And what does that exclusion or absence perhaps say to us? The reason that I'm bringing this up is that how can I put it? While it's clear that power relations can impact our interpersonal communication, so for example, a boss versus an employee, sometimes the power dynamics in the mass media that we engage with, the power differences, the control, the influence, it might not be as evident. And I think that's the gist of what Castells is saying here, you know. What are the things that we are not being shown or told, etc.? And the reason that I want that we bring this up is that we want to challenge you to think critically about the media that you consume. Our colleagues in Brooklyn gave us an example of a situation where somebody made them realize, but hold on, do you realize what you were actually condoning, what you were approving of? So to go into that type of process, to actually to think critically about the media you consume, the messages that you take in, because after all, these messages have the potential to impact the way that we live our lives, to impact the way that we think, etc. They have the potential to influence our minds. Now, this is not to say that we simply have to shut everything out. At the same time, not just accept anything that comes in, but rather to think critically and to ask questions like, who shaped this message? Who was in control? What are the possible motives that people might have for shaping this message in a certain way? This is not to be cynical or skeptical, but rather just, as I've said, to be aware, to think critically. And after all, that's what this course is about, to think about not only the messages that we send out, but the messages that we receive and understanding the processes behind them. So we've just about come to the end of this session. I hope that in conjunction with the material that you will find on Funda, I hope the discussions that we've had today will be helpful in the ways that you think about how power, status, and influence has an impact on the way that we communicate, has an impact on our relationships and communication interactions. Before we end off, we've got a few minutes to spare. I just wanted to know, are there any other comments or questions from your side, either about what we've spoken about today or even about other issues, admin type things as well? I know one of the questions I had earlier was about the marks. Apologies for the delay. We are in the process of trying to wrap up the marks for assignment 2, and we'll get that back to you before assignment 3, which you submitted last week. So we are working on that at the moment. Any other comments or questions? I see some thumbs up in Brooklyn. I assume that means that everything's okay there. Any other comments or questions from our colleagues in Salt River? Okay, they seem to be silent. All right. If there are no further comments or questions, thank you to our colleagues in Brooklyn and Salt River for spending this time with us today. At some point we lost contact with Worcester and Paro, but I hope that they'll have a chance to view this at a later stage, if and or when necessary. So thanks again to all of you for being with us this afternoon, and I see we have one viewer at the moment. I don't know where you are, but thanks for joining us. And to anyone else who's viewing this at a later stage, I hope that this has been helpful and has added value to the content you're engaging with on Funda. That's all from our side for now. Please keep in mind that we have tutorials for 3 weeks in a row to end off the course. So we've got tutorials this week, there will be a tutorial next week, and the week after that. All right, so there'll be 3 weeks in a row. So yeah, that's all from our side for now. Thanks for being with us, and I'll see you next week. Thanks again, and bye-bye. Bye-bye.